This video is supported by patrons like you. If you'd like to become a patron, please head over to patreon.com/Matt Jarbo. Just $1 per month really does help keep the Netflix account paid in full. I might be alone in thinking this. I might be alone in coming out and saying that James Cameron is one of the greatest hype men in cinema history. I mean, not only does he have a stellar track record to fall back on, but the dude really does like to try to pimp things down the road for what could be coming. He just takes forever to get there, right? Like he's shooting Avatar 2 and 3 right now in New Zealand, and it's been 10 years almost since the first movie came out. So it's a little late to the party, right? We're still waiting on a True Lies sequel, you bastard. But when it comes to, let's say, Terminator and the fact that he is going to be getting the rights back to it this year, he's got some plans for the future. In fact, he does talk about it here in an interview. According to Dark Horizons, this is what it says. Ahead of Terminator Dark Fate opening up next week, film's producer James Cameron has given some interviews about the new film and potential future films beyond this point of the franchise he helped birth. Now, Cameron explains that he's already planned out a trilogy of which Dark Fate serves as both the first film and also yet a relatively standalone entry if it needs to be, saying here, we sort of know where our storyline is going based in broad strokes because we actually had I don't know if you noticed, but the story credits for the movie are a little weird because you've also got Chick Egley and Josh Friedman in the story credits, but we sat in a room and we broke across 3 movies before we focused down into the first of the proposed 3, which is Dark Fate. So there's a plot line that runs all the way through a third film if we get to that stage. And the reason for that is you spend a couple of weeks to future-proof yourself so you don't paint yourself into a corner and you can still do things that you want to do. So yeah, there's a lot of good thinking that exists already on that. And I have to fully say, I love that idea. I really do. I say that because ultimately the big factor here is when you look at these sequels, these proposed sequels, or these setups of a franchise or a trilogy, oftentimes it does feel like they do paint themselves into a corner when the movie does well enough, and they want to go back to the drawing board. Look at like Die Hard, for example. Die Hard is based on a book. I think it's No One Lives Forever, which is kind of also a sequel to Commando, using the same character originally, but that's, ultimately it went to Bruce Willis and they changed it up, and they were going to do that, and then they did it, and it became this massive movie. I still think it's one of the greatest action movies of all time. A lot of people love it. It's the Christmas movie in my opinion. And then they said, okay, well, we got to do a sequel. And so then they had to go back to the drawing board and figure out how to put John McClane in more danger. And they did the same thing with number 3, 4, and then 5. They should have stopped at number 3, I'll be fair. I enjoyed 4 and 5, but they should have stopped at number 3. However, when you have writers that are looking forward to trying to expand this out into another trilogy or another franchise, sitting down and pre-planning it out is the best course of action. Focusing on the overview before diving into the first film. That's kind of what happened with J.J. Abrams in regards to Star Wars The Force Awakens, except the sequel to that was not at all what it should have been, and now we're left wondering if The Rise of Skywalker is going to be any good. And I think Cameron potentially wants to avoid a similar situation to that. Now, this new trilogy focuses a lot on our connection with AI, and that's going to be where a lot of it goes. And he goes on to say that he wanted, he says here that he wants, humanity's potential fraught relationship with artificial intelligence to be the key of it, and they want to explore that further, and that they've already got the outlines written for the other 2 stories, and they could easily sit back down and then hammer out a screenplay. And from what I've been hearing, the reviews of this are actually pretty decent. I know people who have already gone and seen it that have spoken highly of it. And apparently it's looking to be a relative crowd pleaser when it drops next week. Now, whether or not it's going to be able to earn back the $200 million it cost in production, even though a lot of that was probably heavily financed by China and Tencent, I don't know. Tim Miller is a director who I trust after watching Deadpool. James Cameron is a producer who I trust after watching, well, quite frankly, every James Cameron movie, and loving the fact that he did write an Alita trilogy before they went out and they made Alita. So the next 2 stories are already set in stone. And that movie did set up a couple threads for future storylines that are going to be pretty great if they ever get around to making it. And it was kind of it was definitely a crowd pleaser that came out earlier this year. So I think when it comes to the producing side of things and getting the story right, Cameron is definitely on board with that. I think he knows what he's doing, and this is his franchise. This is his marquee franchise overall. People might sit there and argue that it's really Avatar, but let's be fair, it's Terminator. People want more Terminator, not necessarily more Avatar, but they also want Terminator to be good. And the sequels that we've had coming after T2, enjoyable, but not the best. I do think that T3 was probably the most enjoyable of the trilogy, or of the you know, the third films and whatnot. But this is going to be something that follows in line after T2, and it's going to be nice to go back into that world that is actually going to have some play, some oversight, some overview by James Cameron, and that's what I'm most excited for. And so if he dives into this as a trilogy, I guess my question to you is this something you want to see? Do you even care about the new Terminator at all? And do you think that a trilogy is even worthwhile to make? Or do you think they're even going to make back the money that they spent on this movie in the first place to warrant a trilogy? Let me know down in the comments below. I will talk to you guys all later. Have yourself a great day. Follow me on Twitter over here, and peace out.